good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio, 107.9 FM, and other radio stations. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, December 19th, 2018. At this time, I invite the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Cornelius De Weaver, to address you. Minister De Weaver.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Ms. Roach. Madam Prime Minister, colleague minister, media, good morning, St. Martin. Allow me first to begin by wishing everyone happy and healthy and safe holidays before I get into my couple announcements. The electronic monitoring system, the contract was signed and Mr. Clark is on the island. He will be testing the coverage as well, and also making sure that all the protocols are established to make sure that the implementation of the anchor bracelet is in full effect pretty soon. So we have received them. We will receive a few more tomorrow as well, and then we can start on using them and, of course, finding an alternative to incarceration as well as maybe early release and different ways that we can use this electronic monitoring to assist us in addressing not only youth delinquency but also petty crimes as well. I also have to mention that there will be traffic diversion today from the Coopercoy area due to the ongoing strike in the Stand the Ground area. The Madam Prime Minister as well as our counterparts at the fence side have communicated to us regarding this matter, and we have been proactive in making sure that there will be no traffic going through the Coopercoy area where they would create either more traffic or a bottleneck on the fence side. So we are working in cooperation, and Mr. John, the chief, is also very active with this and has ensured that there will be police presence throughout to ensure that the traffic keeps flowing and we can avoid any other situations. I'd also like to congratulate Mr. Roberto Livingstone, who has been sworn in at the Coast Guard. I had the honor of swearing him on Friday, and it was a wonderful ceremony. I want to also thank Mr. Ray Lamont for his service during that time as well, and believe that we have to give our residents the opportunity for them to excel in positions, and I think the example of Mr. Livingstone is one that will be used throughout the Ministry of Justice. I know in my discussions with the public prosecutor's office as well with the court, I have clearly indicated that we would like to see more residents involved in the entire judicial chain. So we look forward to those changes coming in the near future. I'd also like to thank Mr. Franklin Richards from the Council of Law Enforcement. He will be leaving after 8 years of service. Mr. Richards has been quite a professional being in that position, and he has helped St. Martin further its cause, I believe, by keeping a balance and, well, technically a checks and balance within the system, and not only for the police, the prison, the public prosecutor's office, the court of guardianship. And I think these are just clear examples of what I believe it was 40 reports over the last 8 years. And that says a lot about the work that they do, but also that the recommendations that they have made over the years, that they should also be taken up in our year plans and be executed in order to improve the entire justice chain. I want to thank Mr. Richards for his service and farewell, but I know Mr. Richards will still be around because he's always one to share advice, guide to those who are willing to listen. Mr. Richards, thank you for your service, and I will await any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister De Weaver, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, the Honorable Stuart Johnson, to address you. Minister Johnson.
Good morning to the members of the media. Good morning to those viewing via Facebook or listening via radio. And good morning to my colleague ministers. Allow me to offer my compliments to the season to my fellow residents of St. Martin and to wish all a very Merry Christmas when it comes. Today, I wish to address a few topics of importance. I will be meeting with the market vendors later today to discuss government's plans for a new marketplace that we believe fits with our objective of building back better and of a sustainable redevelopment opportunity. These plans for the marketplace will improve the ability of the vendors to sell their products in a more attractive and comfortable environment. St. Martin has suffered a significant blow with the passing of Hurricane Irma, but we cannot ignore the opportunity that it has provided us to improve the way we operate. The market vendors are a vital part of the service that especially our cruise passengers enjoy when they visit the Phillipsburg area. And we have the responsibility as government to do what we can do to provide these vendors with adequate facilities from which they can conduct their business. I am happy to report, since the announcement made last week about the non-payment of funds to the organizers to perhaps the most important trade show for the year coming, the Member of Parliament responsible went ahead and paid the bill he left behind more than a year ago. Since then, the collection agents have released the restriction on St. Martin, and we are now able to register to attend the trade and conference show. This has been a very embarrassing situation for our country, and as a destination wanting to promote our tourism product and rebuilding our tourism economy, we just cannot accept this irresponsible behavior. We would have liked to have finalized all our various plans sooner to ensure that we make use of the little limited funds at our disposal as much as possible. But unfortunately, due to the fact that the MP who received the money for the training did not pay, while his colleague who also received money from the ministry paid his portion, we are now having to spend more money and register later to attend. On a good note, I have some good news for the young students on St. Martin, as they can now register to participate in the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association's 2019 essay contest. All primary and secondary students in St. Martin will be able to compete with students from other FCCA partner destinations in the junior division for children ages 12 and under, and the senior division for children ages 13 to 16. Each student must submit one essay in English, 500 words in length, on the topic. Many cruise passengers use cruising as a way to sample different destinations. What impression does my country leave on these passengers, and how does it, or should it, attract them back as stay-over guests? I want to encourage our students to participate in this essay contest, as it serves to give exposure to the winning individuals, their school, and our country. Many of you may have read by now the comments from our government in regards to the financial future of the airport. As shareholder representative of the Princess Juliana International Airport, I wish to state for the record that there must be a clear understanding from all lenders on the terms and conditions which they put forward in order to grant us a loan. It must not be assumed that we are looking a gift horse in the mouth. We will look through it with its teeth, and when others try to tell us that it is safe to push our hands in the horse's mouth. The real questions we as a government have are about these terms for all loans must be answered, and only then can an informed decision about the best way forward for the people of St. Martin be made. We have never denied the need for technical assistance, but assistance should be under no circumstances appear to be a hostile takeover of our airport, even in a distinguished grant. Terms and conditions for loans and grants must be acceptable to the people of St. Martin who ultimately own the airport. To my mind, if there are games being played, it is not by the St. Martin government. We appreciate the eagerness to give us the money so quickly, but our people would have appreciated getting roofs over their head over the past months ago. It has been over a year since we were devastated by Hurricane Irma, and rather than seeing our present opportunity to hold us hostage, if a loan or a grant from the trust fund can be made available within short for the airport, then there should be no excuse for it not made available for the building of the airport that much needed homes for our people can also use. Finally, I wish to give the public some much needed good news. As of Thursday this week, the government of St. Martin, through the Ministry of TIAT, who regulates the price of petroleum products by imposing a maximum amount by which wholesalers and retailers can sell these products on St. Martin, has decided to once again reduce the price of gas. Unleaded gasoline will be reduced from 1.957 to 1.942, and diesel will be reduced from 1.712 to 1.686. I also wish this opportunity to make clear that the hard-working controllers in the inspection department, who continue to be trained in calibration and measurements, will be conducting inspections to ensure the various outlets adapt their prices and are selling to consumers based on accurate measures. We cannot spend our time diminishing the hard work of these individuals, as their task is to ensure accuracy in supermarkets, gas stations, the airport, and other places where scales and measures are used and are being accurately used at that. While we hope to be able to move into the direction of having a full calibration department, we are thankful that the hard-working individuals within the Department of Inspection are still able to produce high-quality work to the benefit of both the business and consumer, and I thank them for that. At this time, it brings me to the end of this morning's press briefing, and I look forward to any questions from the press. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Johnson, for your opening remarks. The Minister of Justice had to leave for an urgent meeting, so I would like to advise the members of the media to direct all questions to his cabinet. At this moment, I invite the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Leona Romeo Marlin, to address you. Prime Minister.
A pleasant good morning to all, my colleague and members of the press. Good morning, St. Martin. On Friday, the General Audit Chamber of the Netherlands released a focused study on the contribution of the Netherlands to the recovery and reconstruction of St. Martin. This report recognizes some of the challenges that the government of St. Martin is experiencing in the recovery process. The past months have taught us that preparation and implementation of trust fund projects takes much more time and capacity that St. Martin and the Netherlands originally anticipated. The implementation of the projects is challenging, not because a lack of will or commitment of political leaders and civil servants of St. Martin, but because of the extreme constraint of capacity on the island and the complex procedures of the World Bank. Yesterday, the World Bank published its own report on the status of the trust fund, providing a full overview of all activities that have been executed with the World Bank between April and November of this year. The World Bank's report acknowledges the implementation of recovery projects on St. Martin is challenging due to the capacity constraints within government and the limited capacity of the market to respond to the demands for goods, works, and services in a flexible and rapid manner. I encourage members of the community to take the time to read the report of the World Bank in order to get a better understanding of all the work that has been undertaken in the past months. For some people, the report of the Audit Chamber may be a reason to question why the Netherlands has chosen the World Bank to assist St. Martin in the recovery process, to blame government for delaying the recovery of St. Martin. But as Prime Minister, I do not want to turn our recovery process into a political game. And I reiterate that the government of St. Martin has and will remain fully committed to the cooperation with the World Bank. While we did not choose the World Bank, We are grateful for their support and ongoing commitment. All parties should continue to work together towards solutions without ignoring the challenges that the government and our hard-working project teams face on a daily basis. I'm counting on the people of St. Martin to protect the recovery process and the cooperation with the World Bank from cheap politics. And I'm counting on the Netherlands and the World Bank to assist the government of St. Martin as much as possible in providing technical expertise in an expedient manner. In the past 6 months, this government has made significant progress in the cooperation with the World Bank and managed to ensure that more than $250 million is committed to the preparation and implementation of recovery and resilience projects. I'm especially proud of the Interim Recovery Committee and the different ministries who had no previous experience with the World Bank, but managed to prepare World Bank projects at record speed. And on this point, the World Bank notes in its report that all projects currently under implementation were prepared with utmost urgency in approximately 1.5 to 1/3 of the average time it takes to prepare a World Bank managed project. While all of us would like to see things get better right now, I reiterate, and I have stated many times, recovery is a process, and we are bound to certain procedures, whether we like it or not. Within those procedures, this government has and will continue to do everything in its power to accelerate the preparation and implementation of the different World Bank projects. In this spirit, I would again like to put attention to the different outstanding tenders on goods, works, and services. Recently added tenders include a request for expression of interest for the assessment and design of the second phase of the roof repair program with the St. Martin Housing Development Foundation, and advertisements for an activity manager for the emergency recovery project and a procurement officer. All necessary information on these and other tenders can be found on the government's website under the National Recovery tab and on the Facebook of the National Recovery Program Bureau. Tenders are also published in the government's information page in the Daily Herald. Secondly, as the minister responsible for the cooperation with the World Bank, I have taken note of the letter that the State Secretary Knopp sent to the Second Chamber on the recovery of St. Martin and of the media reports on the financing of the reconstruction of the airport terminal at Princess Juliana International Airport. In my press briefings of last week, I have informed you that the government of St. Martin has engaged in very serious discussions with the World Bank, the European Investment Bank, and the government of the Netherlands about the financing of the reconstruction of the airport. These discussions are ongoing. Last week, the government of St. Martin hosted several missions of the World Bank and the European Investment Bank in relation to the airport project. The government and the airport are working closely with the project teams of the World Bank and the European Investment Bank that are currently preparing an appraisal of the project proposal. This appraisal serves to inform the steering committee and the board of the European Investment Bank. There is, as such, no final approval from the steering committee, the World Bank, or the European Investment Bank on the financing of the reconstruction of the airport. In the letter of State Secretary Knops and in related media reports, reference is made to negotiations with other potential financiers for the reconstruction of the airport. While the government is not directly involved in such negotiations, the Council of Ministers, as shareholder, has taken note of reports of negotiations by the airport with other potential financiers. In accordance with the Articles of Incorporation, the Council of Ministers has therefore asked the holding company to provide a detailed analysis of the different financing options that are currently on the table. Financial options of this magnitude should not be taken lightly and should be based on thorough analysis of available information. This government remains focused and determined to ensure that the airport is fully up and running as soon as possible for the people and businesses of St. Martin. My final remarks. I know that we're in the midst of the festival holiday season, but if you're going to drink, please don't drive. And for the youth out there, please enjoy the season and have lots of fun, but make sure that you are safe. Before concluding this morning, I would like to state on behalf of the government of St. Martin, I wish all residents and visitors a joyous Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year when it comes. May God bless St. Martin. I thank you and I await your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing. We now move on to the question and answer session. Andrew Dick of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning to the ministers. Minister Johnson, concerning the landmarks, the naming of the landmarks, I know a couple of weeks ago you made an announcement that you will be going to the Council of Ministers proposing it. Can you let us know how far that is now?
Thank you, Andrew, for the question. And those proposals are still ongoing. And once the necessary arrangements have been made and it's been finalized with the Council of Ministers, then a subsequent update would be provided.
Thank you, Minister Johnson, for your opening remarks. Andrew Bishop of stmartinnewsonline.com, you have the floor. Andrew Bishop.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ministers. Good morning, members of the press. Minister, I have a question for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, how are you going to deal with this whole fallout with the Dutch government, which it seems going on a collision course? How are you going to deal with it with regard to the airport and the financing?
Thank you, Andrew, for that question. How am I going to deal with the fallout of the Dutch government? As I stated, we have asked the airport holding for an analysis of the two options. Once that information is given, then the government of St. Martin can have a sound position on the financing of the airport. I think that that is the correct way to approach the entire issue, and once we get that information, then the position of the government will be known.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Seasoned greetings to the people of St. Martin, and also seasoned greetings to the ministers that are here. Minister, there is an impending conflict in St. Martin. Presently now, there are plastic rice that the people of St. Martin have consumed, a lot of people, and they don't aware of it. Minister, have this come to your ears that plastic rice is circulating on the island? And if you're aware of it, what's your plan to deal with it? Minister, I have a sample of it right here. I wish the cameraman can zoom into it. It's it don't spoil, and I mentioned just now a lot of people consume it, and it's plastic. It's gonna destroy our people. So please, Prime Minister, beseeching you to do something rapidly. This is the evidence in my hand right here.
Thank you for that information. I'm sure that the minister responsible for import and exports will bring that to the council. I believe this is the first time that I am, as Prime Minister, or even the Council of Ministers have heard of it. Indeed, we have seen videos on Facebook and throughout social media, but the rice exactly being on St. Martin, in my opinion, or at least for me, I have not heard of it. It hasn't come up in the Council of Ministers, but thank you for bringing that to our attention, and it will have our utmost priority.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Stephen Cerulean of PJD2 Radio, you have the floor.
Minister, Prime Minister, good morning. My question is for the Minister in a capacity as Minister responsible for General Affairs. The departure of Mr. Richards on the Committee for Law Enforcement, has the process to finding a suitable solution started for his replacement?
Thank you for that question. Indeed, I believe that the Minister of Justice is busy with that, with his cabinet. There is a process, and I'm sure that as all other ministers, when someone's time is approaching, information is given from in advance. So I'm sure that that process has started, and once we have that candidate or the person that will fill that position, that will be made known to the general public.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We now move on to the second round of questions. Andrew Dick, you have the floor.
Yeah, Minister Johnson, public transportation. I know that also a couple of weeks ago you said that you were working on a plan for public transportation. How far is that?
Thank you, Andrew, for the question. And of course, public transportation is not a one-two fix. So that has been ongoing. The discussions have been ongoing to ensure that the necessary due diligence takes place. What the Council of Ministers can be happily eager to announce, and you've seen, especially through the Minister of Justice, where police presence has been in the Cold Bay, Simpson Bay area to alleviate the ongoing congestion with traffic. And of course, those steps to continue to ensure that traffic alleviation through other discussions will be ongoing as well. So once the plan is fully outlined and clarified to the different stakeholders of the approach forward, then that will be disseminated to the public in a subsequent announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Johnson. Andrew Bishop.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, we have been informed that there's been some problems, financial crisis at the cadastre. Could you give us something on that, some update on it?
Thank you for that question. I wish I could give you an update. I don't have that information on hand, but I can ask the Minister of Finance responsible and Minister Fromi to give some information so that we can ensure that the public is aware of what exactly is going on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
Good morning again. Question to Minister Johnson. Minister Johnson, it has been said that, well, over the past months, it was pending that the vendors at the market were to delocated. Do you have an area where they're going to be? Because people are just confused to know where their destination will be.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for the question. Of course, people should not be confused. As a minister in charge of THEAT, the people of St. Martin are dear to my heart, and I will continue serving them each and every day. In reference to the marketplace in town, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we have a meeting scheduled with them actually in a few minutes from now to outline the potential plans of government in how we can put a permanent structure in place for them to secure their location, to have their products displayed in a more attractive manner, as well as to stimulate activity in the area. So that is going to be first of many series of sessions that will ensure that the plans has the support of all stakeholders involved. And of course, as Minister in charge of THEAT, it is my important role to ensure that I go to them. So I won't be having them come to the government administration building. I will be going to them in a few minutes to meet with them on location to hear from them firsthand their current challenges, their suggestions for plans going forward, and to hear from them how we together as government and as the stakeholders involved can address the situation in town. In reference to the vendors in Simpson Bay area, they also have no need to worry. In an extension that I provided on December the 14th has been extended for another 6 months. The reason for that extension is again to ensure that we have ongoing discussions with those vendors in the Simpson Bay area and ensure that the plans going forward for government is also outlined clearly to them and their feedback is received. So the economy of St. Martin is important to me. Ensuring that there's economic stimulation of the economy through vendors as well as others is very important for me. So there is no confusion. The government of St. Martin is working for the people of St. Martin every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Johnson. Stephen Cerulean, you have the floor.
Minister of THEAT, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, CTO, has as its theme for 2019 festival. Seeing the fact that we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary of Carnival, how do you intend to incorporate this theme in the Carnival activities? And to further afield, is it your intention to take it to the schools, take into consideration the significance of tourism for St. Martin?
Thank you for your question. Of course, it's very important to continue to highlight Carnival. I know in certain circles, Carnival excites people, especially when it comes from me. The Golden Box excited some people. The announcement of Carnival's 50th celebrations and preparations excites some people. But again, it's deeply rooted in the governing program for this coalition government. And it's important going forward, especially to know, Stephen, that at the end of January, I will be attending CTA, which is a conference in Jamaica. And a part of that conference, of course, will be the CTO. Important part of that conference is how CTO and St. Martin's participation in that is going to continue. What are we going to see as a destination going forward? So I did meet with the chairman, which is the minister in charge for the respective territory over CTO in Puerto Rico. We had some initial discussions in regards to the direction. There is going to be a shift in the structural layout of the organization. So he asked for my blessings and continued support until we get to Jamaica at the end of January for that session, and to ensure that St. Martin's participation, even in CTO, is more solidified along with other Caribbean islands. In reference to your question, even more direct, indeed, reaching out to all stakeholders, schools, the community at large, is an ongoing effort for the Ministry of TIAT in particular. Actually, this week, we are scheduled to make some calls with the Vice President of the French side to meet with some tourism stakeholders and get underground feedback, as well as an underground tour of where we're going to go as a destination, and to hear directly from those persons. So the ongoing involvement of everyone is important, especially our schools and especially those relevant stakeholders in the tourism sector.
Thank you, Minister Johnson. We now move on to the third round of questions. Andrew Dick, you have the floor.
Prime Minister, seeing that the Minister of Justice is not here, maybe you can help me with an answer. State Secretary Knops also mentioned the prison that St. Martin did make some promises. Some short-term goals were set in place, but that did not come to reality. Can you tell us a little bit as to why, and how soon can we get all the stipulations done?
Thank you. We just have to be realistic. Huh? There has been progress within the budget, the resources that we have. Perhaps it's not to the liking of others, but nevertheless, the Minister of Justice has been working diligently with the resources that he has to make sure that the items are listed by State Secretary Knops, that they are fulfilled. I believe that without funding, it's going to be it's an uphill battle, but it has the priority. I remember the last update that I received that the prison walls, that they have been restored. So there have been process, bids have went out, tendering has went out. So there has been significant progress. Is it to the where we would like it to go? No, we can only work within our means. But if we get extra assistance, we can definitely accelerate the process. But we will stay steadfast in ensuring that we as a government do what is necessary with the means that we have, and indeed swallow our pride at times and still ask for assistance, though we get back and forth from the general public, from others on it. But I know that the Minister of Justice from day one has the prison as a priority. And remember, he's always stated the prisoners are our prisoners and wants to take full responsibility for them. However, at the same time, we can only work within the means of what we have. So therefore, I do agree that there has been progress. Has there been sufficient progress? No, but that lack of more progress has come from the fact that we don't have the necessary resources needed to do it. But we're heading in the right direction.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Andrew Bishop, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, another question for you. There have been recent publications that the financial situation of GEBE. It was said that the former Minister of Finance had taken out between 20 to 30 million guilders. Is government prepared to give back at least some of the money to GB because of the financial situation?
I wouldn't like to answer for the Minister of Finance, but I would say as Prime Minister, we can't give what we don't have. If we had it, we would. One of the things that we have facilitated, GEBE has asked the World Bank through the trust funds for assistance. And I believe what they are getting is they invested some monies in repairing of the water tanks and some infrastructure. They are going to get reimbursed for such. I believe the World Bank is just waiting for certain things to be on GB's part to send some information to them. But in that way, they're getting assistance. I know they invested some significant amount of money in that, and through the emergency recovery project in the beginning, that is that has been approved by the World Bank, and they will get assistance in that manner. But as for government to give 20 to 30 million, we don't have those funds to do such.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Question to Prime Minister Marlin. Recently, there was a march, and the slogan was, "Let our leaders lead." Prime Minister, the 550 million, what power the government of St. Martin have over that money?
What power does the government of St. Martin have over that money? The 550 million euros or $580 million was a grant given by the people of the Netherlands for the recovery of St. Martin. What was in place? The first set of monies came through NGOs. Those were direct funding, and therefore those NGOs were able to execute rapidly to get their projects done. Fact is, they had no hassle. They had to follow specific procurement processes, but they had no middle entity involved. So they were able to execute. Secondly, the second part in emergency recovery projects, one, where we have the steering committee involved. Now you have a structure. The structure where you ask for, well, before that, that was the direct funding through the NGOs. The second part was during the emergency recovery projects, funds were given, for example, to the police so that they could start. Funds were given to all of the emergency cares where we didn't have to go through a steering committee to get these things approved. We have identified several projects, started to receive monies for such, so they could have been executed. The process was different. We identified those projects. The third is through the steering committee. Projects that have to go through the steering committee, the projects come from the ministries. The various ministries, we then make a proposal to the steering committee. It goes through a process of approval for the 3 members. So St. Martin has consistently been on the forefront in identifying the projects that we deemed necessary and deemed important. Do we always get what we want with certain things? No. Certain things that fall under the National Recovery and Resilience Plan are, the focus is on that plan, and all of the projects should come within that plan. There are a lot of expectations, especially in the beginning, from entities that thought that they could have just accessed the World Bank Trust Fund monies like that. So a lot of expectation was quite high. But when we got into the nitty-gritty and really understanding how the processes of the World Bank work, we then saw something completely different. Nevertheless, we worked with it. You asked about the power. Do we have power? In one way, yes, we do. We have a representative on the steering committee, and he has a say to represent St. Martin. He has a responsibility to represent St. Martin, and he has been doing such. The final say does not lie with him, but lie in the committee of 3. There is a St. Martin representative, a representative from the Netherlands, and one of the World Bank. And any project to be approved must be approved by all 3 unanimously. So indeed, that is a process, and that's the process we're in right now. We're finalizing the first emergency response projects. That's one part where we had more control. It was emergency projects, and now it's a different process, but we are working with what we have. We have understood that there's a lot of complaints about the delays. Some people are saying that they haven't seen, but there was a lot of work done, and I'm sure within short we will be posting as well all of the projects that have been completed or have started through the trust fund, and to show that to show the people of St. Martin that, you know, recovery is a process, but we are moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Stephen Cerulean, you have the floor.
Prime Minister, St. Martin has been expressing its desire of becoming an associate member of CARICOM. You recently met with the General Secretary of CARICOM. I'm sure this was one of your topic of discussion. Can you tell us how closer are you in becoming or achieving your associate membership with CARICOM, and what kind of finances is associated with this membership?
Thank you, Stephen, for that question. Indeed, we are very much closer to than when we started. I believe the process started in 2013, if I can recall correctly. And what the results of the hard work and the lobbying will be fruitful. The meeting, Ambassador LaRoque expressed the family ties of St. Martin. We're very much so British in one sense. With a population of over 114 nationalities, where CARICOM members are all represented here on St. Martin. And he sees that kindred relationship between St. Martin and the rest of the CARICOM countries. He indicated that the request or the application is quite positive. It has now to go to a committee of the heads of government, and they will give their final approval. And I don't have anything to worry about from the reports and the conversation that I had with them, and we will see some great things within short. But St. Martin has been, even before associate membership, benefited from some of the CARICOM entities, such as SEDEMA. We're busy engaging more with them. We deal with impacts, that's for safety and security. So we are heading in the right direction, and I'm glad to know that we have other members in the CARICOM countries that are very much for St. Martin's application to become an associate member.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Given the time, we will be moving into a fourth round of questions. So, Andrew Dick, you have the floor.
Prime Minister, another question maybe you can help me with. The INSO situation with the airport. We understand from reports that the minister traveled to Italy to get a guarantee letter. Is there any truth to that report, and any additional information you can share concerning that?
According to the meeting that we had yesterday with the Council of Ministers, the Minister of VSI is here. He's not in Italy. Will he be traveling to Italy in the near future? Yes, he will be. But according to me, he has not gone to Italy. So I don't know. I haven't seen that report. And that's the update that I have as it relates to INSO right now.
Does he?
I will allow it this one time. You can go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to know. So, but does he plan to get a guarantee letter from INSO?
A guarantee letter from whom?
From the main company in Italy.
I don't have that answer right now, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. I do know that he has given a press statement, and he has indicated that St. Martin has nothing to worry about. So I believe that within short, the people of St. Martin would get even more information from the minister. And again, it's his responsibility as minister to ensure that St. Martin, for lack of a better word, doesn't get gypped. And Minister Lee is quite a meticulous person, and I think that he will make sure that he crosses his T's and dots his I's and ensure that everything is in the benefit of St. Martin, because he has been working very hard to ensure that the hospital is up and running. That has been one of his priorities ever since becoming Minister of VSA. So therefore, I'm sure that he will come with an answer, or whatever questions you can put it in writing, and he will answer, because he's quite very vocal, as you know, Minister Lee to be.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Andrew Bishop.
Prime Minister, it seems as though that most of the questions are coming to you. But that cannot be helped, because right now we don't have the Minister for Bromley here. We've noted that the work on the Dutch Quarter Road has started. Though a lot of inconvenience to the vehicular traffic, we would like to know how soon this would be finished, because we are already in the Christmas season.
Yes, that is part of the EDF funds, the Dutch Quarter roads. As indicated in my statement when I made it in Dutch Quarter, I asked the people for patience. I remember the community leader, the community council leader also asked for such. And one of the things that they stated they didn't mind because they know in the end it's for the benefit of the people of Dutch Quarter and whoever is traveling in and out. It's about time that Dutch Quarter has these facilities. So I will take this opportunity to ask the people of Dutch Quarter again to just have some patience because the end result will be in their benefit. We can't have everything as we want it very quickly, and they waited a long time. They don't mind waiting a little bit more because this is in their benefit.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
Well, I'm going to change the question very much. Question to Minister Johnson. Minister Johnson, recently there was some unrest in Phillipsburg at the beach. And who feel the brunt? The poor black people. Do you have in plan to make something sustainable for these people? We may not know, you may not know what they're going through, but it's about survival, the bottom line. Oftentimes, I have witnessed that they are hiding from the authorities. Do you have something better so that they try to work to make some money, whether illegal, legal, I don't know. But do you have in plan to help them to make it better for St. Martin and for these people?
Well, thank you, Mr. Brown, for bringing it forward and championing this unknown cause right now and bringing it forward for consideration. I'm sure interministerial discussions will take place because it involves different ministers to be involved. My person as Minister of TIAT, Justice aspect, many other ministers would have to be involved in a bigger discussion. And of course, where there is a need, where there is a cry, we always answer that cry. So indeed, thank you for bringing it forward. And of course, I look forward to having those discussions once an in-depth investigation to find out what and if and how and when, if there's anything taking place, really transpires and that we get that fully addressed with the necessary information coming forward. But thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Minister Johnson. Stephen Cerulean, you have the final question.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Happy holidays to you, Prime Minister. Happy holidays to you as well, Minister of TIAT. My final question is for the Minister of TIAT. We so often hear many persons call on the reigniting of the boardwalk. In fact, they are basically saying that nighttime becomes a darkness on the boardwalk in particular. Is it your intention to address this in the coming days, taking consideration the fact that the tourist season has already started?
Thank you, Stephen, for the question. Of course, discussions are already ongoing with the Ministry of RAMI to ensure that the boardwalk is lighted, especially at night. It's of paramount importance that this takes place. And of course, those discussions I hope to have wrapped up with my colleague minister within short. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Johnson. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, December 19th, 2018.